Welcome to a Super Bloom podcast. Hi, it's me. I'm the host. It's me, Candice King. Oh, gosh, my heart is so full of joy after this conversation with Candace Nicholas-Lippman. Yep, we get two Candices today on the podcast. Candace, who I'm sitting down with, if you don't know who she is, Candace Nicholas-Lippman is an actress, spoken word artist, and producer on the rise. She is making a name for herself in the entertainment industry and the literature space. Right now, you can catch Candace Nicholas-Lippman in the lead role as Janelle in season 2 of Starz' critically acclaimed musical drama series, Blindspotting. It's so great. If you haven't seen it yet, both seasons are out right now. If you've got Starz, and if you don't, then get Starz. What do you do? Just get Starz and do like the free trial for a moment so you can watch this incredible show. And Candace is no stranger to the stage. We're going to talk about her experience growing up in theater, her work as a spoken word artist, as well as her one-woman show, A Rose Called Candace, which is a 60-minute storytelling experience that received fantastic reviews in LA following multiple successful runs, including being showcased in the 26th annual LA Women's Theater Festival in the spring of 2019. You can find her on social media at candice.nicholas.lippman. Oh, just buckle up, buttercups. We got a wonderful, inspiring talk for you today. Please enjoy my interview with Candace Nicholas-Lippman. Where are you? Where am I talking to you from?
I am in LA.
How's LA?
It's great. I love LA. I'm from Sacramento, but I would I love living out here, even though it's more difficult, in terms of living costs and stuff out here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
it's
that is
crazy.
always, it is insane. It is a whole other, there's like some silly, ridiculous, I am technically on TikTok, but I don't really go on it. But there's one where everyone says I think it's Kris Jenner going, "It's wackadoodle time." And that's that keeps running in my head. And that's how I feel whenever I have to pay for anything in LA. I'm like, this is wackadoodle time. Like, this does not make sense. Like, how is LA with the writer's strike going on? The whole industry is kind of at a standstill right now. How has it been?
It's rough in these streets.
Yes.
I'm just going to say that it's really rough, but I have a lot of faith and I have a lot of grind. So, I'm keeping the faith and I'm keeping positive, and I'm just like, God, I must just stay ready for when everything starts moving again,
I know. I've been very, I've definitely had to recently recognize the timeline that I would like to plan out for myself, and then the timeline of God or the universe or whoever you want to call your higher, spiritual person. And it was I kind of compare it to I was taking an Uber in New York, and I had to get from one very far distance to the other very far distance. And I knew I was going to get there. I knew I was going to end up at that other spot. And yet here I am just continuously looking at the Uber, continuously updating my Apple Maps, trying to as if me staring at the timer is going to make me get there any faster.
Right.
And I think that's how it can feel in periods of time like this, I think, where it's exactly what you're saying. You're I know we're going to get there. Right now is just the in-between time. How do you handle in-between times? What do you do to stay creative?
I do things making sure that I'm trying to stay in creative spaces. For example, last night I went to the Poetry Lounge, which is a really big, spoken word venue out here in Los Angeles, and just being around other creative people in a creative space. I'm a big believer in creating your own opportunities. And I also am a big believer of, Candace, because it's interesting thing, because when people are like, "Oh, you made it," or "You made it," I don't really subscribe to that, because the things that I'm believing God for, or what I believe God has called me to, and what my destiny is, I haven't even reached the surface of what I believe He's called me to, and I am a big believer in not sitting and waiting for something. I believe that God has put everything in us that we need to be successful, to fulfill purpose. So no matter what's happening in the world, no matter kind of what's going on in your life, you're always an artist, you're always a creative. So I try my best to make sure, again, that I'm keeping myself surrounded in creative spaces, or if I feel led to create something, then I will. I really I'm a very honest person when it comes to like the journey and my struggles. You know, I'm unashamed in like everything that I've been through and how I maneuver through life and everything. And I really believe that you, goodness, I feel like I'm going all on a
No,
tangent.
no,
What
this
was
is no, this no,
oh
that
my
it's
gosh.
no, I understand everything that you're saying. I feel that too. It is when I have that same thing. I worked on a show called The Vampire Diaries, and we had like witches and werewolves, and which has lent itself all these years later. The show's been off the air for golly, I want over 6 years, and we still go to like Comic Cons and conventions and meet people who are still watching the show or finding it for the first time. And
Mhm.
so many times I'll meet other creatives or actors, or aspiring actors who are asking like, well, you've made it, and so then how do I do that? And I
Mhm.
can resonate exactly with what you're saying, that it's, there is no making it in the creative. You always need to be, you can't, it's not about the answers, it's about the questions.
Right.
And so you're constantly, when you find an answer, it's like, well, what's the next question that leads to? What's the next thing that is going
Right.
to keep igniting this like flame of creativity within myself?
Yeah.
When was that flame ignited for you? At what age? When did you? Because I know you have an incredible career also as a writer, and I'm excited to talk more about your spoken word performing and performances. But what was kind of an inciting incident for you that led you specifically to theater?
Well, this is an interesting story because, fun fact, I used to want to be a lawyer when I was younger. I was like, oh God, I'm going to change the world one court case at a time. And then, Candace, I took seventh grade drama at San Brandon Middle School with Mrs. Clark, did a monologue on stage. And I know it sounds so corny and cliche, but it literally changed my life. Like the response and reaction I got from my peers, the reaction I got from my teacher, the way I felt, I was like, oh no, God, I'm going to change the world through my art. That's what I'm created to do. And from then, like seventh grade, I started writing all of my own plays. Like I literally still have like this huge binder of plays and screen plays and stage plays, everything that I was writing when I was in high school. I come from very humble beginnings, and my high school, we didn't really have an arts program there at the school. So I went to the teachers and I was like, hey, can we have like a drama club? And they were like, well, if you want to ask the English teacher to also be the drama teacher. And that's exactly what I did. I said, can you be the drama teacher too? And she was like, sure. And then I just started like directing and performing and doing things. Listen, Candace, I was like, once I found out, I was like, oh, this is what I'm meant to do. I'm one of those people, like, once my mind is made up about it, I'm like, okay, God, I'm giving everything. So I don't know if you could tell, I'm very passionate. So my passion bleeds over, into everything. And it's like, that is where it all started, was seventh grade.
Do you remember this drama? I love that you've created this drama club. My version of that when I was younger is I wanted to be the sixth Spice Girl member. So I came home in elementary school and I was like, hey, Mom, so I'm going to hold auditions for my own girl group. And she's like, oh, okay, rolling her eyes. And then a week later, she was like, what are these kids? Why do you have flyers? I was like, I told you, Mom, they're coming over to audition for my girl group, Girl Zone, obviously. Like, and I did. I like everyone who auditioned made it. It was 5 for 5.
Yeah.
But there is something like the fearlessness of like youth and passion, specifically when it comes to, I feel like it's like kids that get very involved in the creative, the arts, or even sports as well when you're young. Do you remember the first play that you guys did? Did you like pick it out? Like, were you seeing the theater?
I wrote.
You wrote it?
It was called Wrap It Up, but with a W, like rap. No, with the R, wrap it up, like rapper.
Yes.
And it followed the life of this rapper. And I was so upset, Candice, because I remember the teacher, because I wanted to like star in it. I wrote it and I was directing it. And the teacher was like, no, Candice, you can't be doing all of the parts. And I was like, oh. So then she was like, you could be the writer and the director, but you have to have someone else star in it. But I was upset about that because my best friend, Mika, she got to play the lead role. And it was I cast, his name is Josh. Shout out to Josh. I don't know if he gonna remember this or not, but he was super tall and super skinny. There was this boy, Josh, at my high school, and he was so cute. And I cast him as the rapper. Like he was good. He was a good lyricist.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to play, the romantic. But then my best friend I was like,
Did
this
they
is like
kiss?
a
Did Mika
Lifetime
and
movie.
Josh kiss?
Yes, of course I wrote that in there. And I'm like, dang it. Very PG because this is still high school.
Of course, of
I was
course.
very PG. But yeah, but that was one of the first productions and I had wrote and directed.
Oh my gosh.
Had no idea what I was doing, but but that goes back to what I said earlier, where God already puts everything in you. And sometimes it takes other people to pull it out. Sometimes it takes an experience, like being thrusted on stage. Like sometimes things happen in life where you're like, oh wow, I have this gift. Like that's even what happened with me with poetry. Like I didn't even know that I had the gift of spoken word until I saw what it did, in the atmosphere or the room when I would perform it. And I'm like, oh God, this is ministry. Oh, this is another gift that you've given me. Look at how you're using me, God, to make a difference like this through a poem. Like, oh wow, and you just started this, which is also too Candace Day. Sorry, I forgot I'm just jumping all over the place.
I love it.
But also too, that's why I love, because I teach and I coach, and I love working with the babies and like God willing, one day I want to have my own like drama school or acting program for underprivileged youth, because I was an underprivileged youth and I know what it's like when you're not raised in an atmosphere that can nourish the talent or potential that you have, or being around family or whatever that may not recognize, like, oh, no, that child is not misbehaving. Like that child just needs some place to put their energy. Give me your baby. All that talking in the class clown and all that stuff, all that he's acting out. Oh, no. You just got to put him in the right atmosphere. And I guarantee you that baby's going to thrive. You just have to know, and it's, yeah. So
it is ridiculous that we all think that we all learn in one way and that we all express and communicate in one way, which is, it's ludicrous. We won't get into the Tennessee politics of what's been going on in our school districts lately. But it's basically a whole bunch of children that are now being kind of like held back based off of a test that someone came up with. And it's just thrown off everything. And it just isn't like it is crazy that here we are. And, and we're still trying to limit these younger generations based off of how we think they are supposed to learn. And this is also coming off of 2020, where we told these younger generations, oh, actually, we're going to make you learn in a completely different way during this global pandemic and then go back. And also to your point, it is, just going back to, doing things because you have a sense for it and you have a calling and you have a curiosity. And I look back now on so many times in my life where, because of fear that was instilled in me from someone else, doubt that was instilled in me from someone else, made me completely shut down a part of my creative that I then became too nervous and scared to tap into because of this doubt of that I don't know how to do it or I won't be good at it. And so the fact that you were able to create this like safe haven of creativity where you could tap into it and confidently and listen to your voice as opposed to others maybe around you. What was like, did you find a really like fun group of students and other friends who joined your drama club? Like, what were the adults saying? Was this like a supported, like, I'm like picturing this Disney version of the like drama club where y'all like put on the performance and everyone was like, yes. Did you feel that like support around you? Or were you like, we are our own like group and we're gonna like, you found like your people within the community, or what, like, did the whole community gather around you guys?
That's an interesting question, only because of where I was raised and where I come from. It definitely wasn't like a High School Musical type vibe where everyone's like, no, but
can you tell my 7-year-old is watching High School Musical like every day right now? So when you're talking about this, I'm like, oh, it's just like High School Musical, but yes.
Oh yeah, no, it's not like, no. Yeah. Like again, where I come from, again, the best way for me to describe it is just very humble beginnings. And the school I was at, it just, let's just say the arts weren't like the popular thing to be a part of at my school. There were, of course, students and my peers who enjoyed it, who would perform, who would, and everything, but it wasn't like, let's say, as popular as basketball. or something like that. But the teachers there, I was I was a very hands-on student. I was very involved in like everything. I was student body president, homecoming queen, like I was, and it's crazy how involved I was, and I guess popular, if you will, by just really being myself. I never, I never like molded into the crowd or tried to fit in. I was always known like, oh, Candace, that's goofy Candace, or like bubbly Candace, energetic Candace. Like I didn't allow my environment to cause me to conform or change who I naturally was. And I'm very grateful to the teachers at Luther Burbank, especially Phil Brand. He was my favorite teacher, which is ironic considering the fact that math is my least favorite subject. I hated math, but I love Mr. Brand and he loved me. And no, they were so supportive. I remember doing a pageant at that time and I was able to hold a whole meeting with the staff. And they actually met before school, came early, listened to my little pitch of how I needed them to help fundraise and donate to my campus. Like I was like that student. So I'm very grateful to Burbank. They were very supportive and stuff. But in terms of my peers, again, not everyone was running to go put on a costume and learn some lines.
Similar. I feel like it's a tough sell at any school for like middle school and up, especially. When were you still in high school when you saw your first spoken word performance, or had you graduated by then?
Yeah, no, it was in college when I moved out here to LA, actually. I wrote poetry and stuff when I was in elementary school. My first poem was Ode to My Red Pants. And my English teacher would have me going around to the other classes performing that poem.
Your red pants?
Ode to My Red Pants. And it was like this silly poem, but the teacher loved it. And he was just like, you're so talented. And I'm going to have you do it for the other English classes. And I was like, oh, okay. But spoken word poetry, I didn't get introduced to that until I moved to Los Angeles. And it was like a whole new world because Sacramento, we don't really have a poetry scene in Sacramento. So LA, though, it was like popular out here. And I was like, what is this? Like, what is this that they're doing? It was like performative, but kind of rapping, but you're not really rapping, but you're like, and I'm like, what is this? And I remember like for maybe quite a few of us, one of my very first spoken word pieces was Birth from Pain. My heart was completely obliterated by this boy when I was in
Josh,
college.
no, I'm kidding.
Well, this person in college will remain nameless. Okay. Bless him. But yeah, so he destroyed my heart. He broke it. Okay. But I am grateful to it because not only did it birth another gift inside of me that I did not know existed, it also brought me closer to God, and my relationship with Jesus was like, it opened up everything for me. So I'm very grateful to that. But yeah, it was LA and I was going to college. And then that's when I really like got into the spoken word. And like I said earlier, the very first time I ever performed spoken word and how the entire atmosphere shifted, the entire room, like I knew that was nothing but God. Like there's no way I can even take credit for it. Like people went into worship, like it all from me telling just my testimony, my story, and so many people identify. People were coming up to me crying, women being like, they were going to commit suicide if they're happy they were going to call that person. They're happy they heard my poem. I'm like, God, I see what you're doing and I see how you're using me. So I'm just going to keep on using this gift and owning the skill, and wherever door you open, I'm going to walk through it, God, and hopefully, make a difference.
Had you been religious? Had you had a relationship with God?
I hate that word religious. I don't even like the word religion. And it's interesting because the moment I say Jesus, automatically people, they put you in a box and they're like, oh, you're religious. And I'm like, no, religion causes dissension. The God I serve is all about unity and love. So I would refer to myself as someone who is on a faith walk. I believe in what I believe. You could believe in what you believe, and we could still coexist. Amen. And it's like, I'm not judged because I can't condemn you. I can't save you. I am a imperfect being just like you. trying to do this thing called life, just like you. And all I do is walk boldly with my faith. If it brings you to my faith, then amen. If it not, still amen, because I'm unashamed in who I serve and what I believe. I believe also too that another difference with religion, it's religion versus relationship. I have a relationship with God. I talk to God just like how I'm talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
I believe religion sets you in a box where you have to follow this. And if you don't do this, then you're going to go to hell. And if you don't do, no. I do not believe that is the kind of God that I serve. I don't believe anyone is better than another person. I don't believe one lifestyle is better than another lifestyle. Listen, do you live your life? Do what you want to do. I'm doing what I want to do, which is believing in my Savior. Yes, Jesus. And still trying to just spread love and be positive, but yeah, no, I would never categorize myself as religious. I am literally someone who is on a faith walk and I'm sharing my journey. And again, if it inspires you, amen. If it's not for you, then still amen. God bless you and keep it moving,
Yeah. Yes. No, it's interesting, especially being in LA. I feel like because I'd lived there when I was younger for 6 years,
Oh, where
6
are
years.
you at?
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, you in Tennessee?
I'm in Tennessee.
Oh.
Yep. Just in a closet in Tennessee. Just on a very hot day, just sweating in a closet. But
the things we do,
the
right?
things
To
we
get the
do for
content,
good
right?
sound quality and content. But I had also lived in LA not too long ago for 4 years this time. But it was interesting moving back here to Nashville because here, like the subject of friends of mine and their relationship with God or their relationship with their religion came up
Mhm.
really organically. And it wasn't this, I found that it became almost a politicized conversation in a lot of my conversations when I was living in LA. And that there would be some people I was friends with within the industry who would talk about, their relationship with God or Jesus or their religious practices that they
Mhm.
choose to follow. But it felt like it was almost this like just a very unique subject in LA. It didn't feel like something that I just always danced around it. I didn't bring it up. And
Mhm.
I'd had a tough couple of years where I found myself in prayer again, and I'd been absent of it for so long. And just kind of how you're talking about, where it wasn't necessarily in any sort of formal way of like me finding a church or finding a group, but it was me sitting down with my God and having
Yes.
conversations in feeling it as a conversation and not just talking at someone, but really trying to listen
Yes.
to. And
Yes.
it's been beautiful at this stage in life to have that, especially in times where I've felt incredibly lost or
Yes.
lonely. And this industry can be a lot of that for a lot of people. And
Yes.
that's where I think a lot of people can then find, other voices to listen to, whether it's doubt or things that do not serve
Mhm.
them, choices that do not
Mhm.
serve them. You've had I'm excited to continue discussing like your journey within your career, which is just cannot wait. It's obviously going to continue and continue and continue.
Please,
But
Jesus,
in
please.
your, yes, but in
Please.
your like, did you find being in LA and which I know it very well, the amount of no's that you get, the rejections you get from auditions, having to really believe in yourself, knocking on front doors of opportunities and they're locked. So you go and check the windows to see if they're open. I always call it like, I'm like, oh, I end up always crawling through the basement. Every time I think that
Mhm.
there's like an easy way into an opportunity or my dream, I'm like, oh, nope. I always
Right.
take the hardest way possible, but I get in there eventually. Did your relationship with God walk you through a lot of those moments where you had to really sit with yourself and your choice of being out in LA and chasing and working towards this career in entertainment?
Oh my goodness, for sure. Like, I would not, I promise you, Candace. And again, I know it sounds so cliche, but I genuinely would not be here had it not been for my faith. Like I was homeless. I was living in my car out here in LA trying to achieve this dream. I've had many nights of rumbling stomachs because I couldn't afford, you have to decide, okay, which is more important right now for my money? Like, I need this or I need, it was just, No, it's been extremely difficult. It is so hard when you feel like you're so close and it looks like that's about to be a yes, and then for it to only be a no, for you to constantly be rejected. I always tell people, especially those who are in this industry who want to do this as well, that overnight success stuff, yes, it does happen for some people, but that is very rare. It took me 10 years before I finally booked my series, my first lead role. It took me 10 years. There are many people that I graduated with that I know, many of my peers and colleagues, that unfortunately they did move back home. They did go ahead and say, you know what, I'm gonna just go ahead and do the corporate thing and I'm gonna do that 9 to 5 because this is a hard industry. And if you don't have some kind of foundation, if you don't have something outside of yourself to believe in or to inspire you or to keep that hope alive, it is, I don't know how people can do it. If you don't have something bigger than yourself, just to remind you, like, okay, it's in your strength, God, that I can do this. Like all of my weakness, like I am just a human, but through you, Father God, through your spirit, through everything that you've empowered me, like I can do this with you, God, but I cannot by myself. And also too, being very honest, because again, I have a relationship with God. Not all the time am I happy with him either. I love you, Jesus. Please forgive me. But I'm not, because Candace, for real, are you always happy with your friends? Your
Yeah, I know.
spouse,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
a relationship. There's times I'm like, God, I really don't feel like talking to you today. I don't feel like praying today. I don't feel, I'm upset. I thought this was a yes, Jesus. Or why did it look like now my life is starting to change? Finally, God, it looks like it's happening. Oh no, it's a pandemic. Oh God, it looks like it's happening. Oh great, now it's a writer's strike. Oh God, it looks like it's happening. Oh, we may or may not get renewed. Oh God, it looks like it's happening. No, that audition didn't come through. Like, it's hard sometimes,
Mhm.
especially I would say for myself, because Candace, I work so hard. Do you know what I mean? And my work ethic, because I always tell people, faith without works is dead. God is not a genie. So you can't
Mhm.
just sit there and be hoping, please God, please God. It's like you have to put the work in to match your faith. And I do that with everything, even my fitness journey. People, why have you been losing? Why have you been? Because I say, because I am manifesting the roles. I see myself looking a certain way. I see myself healthy. I see myself, if I want to do Marvel, please God, in the name of Jesus, if I want to do action, if I want to play a romantic lead, if I want, there's a certain way that I believe I see myself in these particular. So by faith, I'm working out hard. By
Mhm.
faith, I'm acting as if. I don't know when Marvel's gonna come out. I don't know if I'm gonna book. I don't know, but I'm
But you'll
like,
be
God,
ready.
I'm ready, and that's faith. I
Yeah.
posted something, Candace. It was a quote I saw, and I posted it because I do like these encouragement threads on my page, just to, try to keep. And I'm very authentic, even on my page, on my social media. It's like my social media is exactly who I am. There's no character. I'm not posing as it. You get me all the time. Yes, Jesus, I am who I am. So I do these encouragement threads, and most of the time when I feel led to do it or when God puts it on my spirit, it's because I needed it. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh God, if I need this, if I'm feeling low, I'm pretty sure there's so many people out there who are feeling the same way. And especially for me, because people are like, you're always so positive. How do you always stay so happy? I'm not always happy. I have joy always, but I'm
Yes.
not always happy. Those are two different things. And so I don't want anyone to ever look at me and be like, look, she got it together. She's always positive. She's never going through the devil. I'm going through it just like y'all. I struggle with insomnia because I have to work against anxiety. Anxiety is the antithesis of faith. Like, how can you be so anxious and have all this anxiety, Candace, when you already believe what God? It's a
Mhm.
journey. It's a
Yeah.
process. It's a struggle. So I am authentic and honest about sharing that, because so much on social media is a facade anyway, and I feel like
Mhm.
it's like, Candace, I know my purpose. I know my assignment. I am very clear on why God has me on earth, what I'm here to do. And that's why I'm unashamed about sharing my journey, my testimonies. And one of the things, like, oh my goodness, went on a tangent. One of the things I was trying to tell you that I just recently posted in an encouragement thread was thanking God in advance is called faith. That is what so again, going back to, oh, I'm working out because I'm manifesting an action role. Oh God, I'm doing this because I'm believing for, oh God, I put my one woman show out there into the world. I put my story out in the world, God, because I believe that there is power in my testimony. And I see, God, how you're going to use me to impact other people that can relate to my story. I believe by faith that one day a Rose Called Candace will be on the big screen. I believe it. But I did the work first by putting it on stage. I did the work by writing the script. I don't know what's going to happen or where that's going to go, but God, I see what you put in me. I'm putting it out into the world for you to possibly bless. Ooh, I know that was a long-winded
No, I
answer.
love it. And because I'm excited to talk about your one woman show, but also because it did fantastic, by the way. Like, like it's incredible. But that's also, I have a dear family friend, Tammy, who she calls little moments where you're kind of calling out to God, and you get, like, when you start to hear back, or you get like little signs or little notes. Like I was just going through some really deep personal stuff a couple of years ago, and I was walking into an Airbnb just kind of at the end of my rope, holding on to just the last little string. And I just was wondering, like, God, what are we doing here? Like, am I just failing at this? And I go to the bathroom, kid you not, into this Airbnb, and the owners of it had written like a little prayer, and like with like a Bible quote. And and it was like all about like, you're where you're meant to be, and you will be on there. And I just was sitting there going, oh my gosh. And I talked to my friend Tammy about this. She's like, oh, I call those God winks. And I was like, oh, I love that.
Love
Like a little wink from God, just being like, I gotcha.
Yes.
And so it's lovely to have those little God winks in life, which, when did you write your one woman show? And because it got so, I mean, wonderful accolades.
So it took me, I developed it for 4 years. So yeah, I finally debuted it in 2018. So since 2014, I had been working on that show. And also too, because it's my life story, it's a 60-minute storytelling experience. And ooh, Candace, it is an experience. Okay. I literally take you like in 60 minutes exactly of like this roller coaster ride, you know. The reason why it took 4 years, one, I was working on writing it while I was homeless. So even in there, I was questioning God, like, God, you want me to share my, like I'm using the restroom in the bushes. I'm washing up in McDonald's. Like, God, I don't have a roof. Like, what, you know? And also too, all the things I had experienced growing up, you know, I had to do the work of forgiveness. I had to do the work to make sure that I'm not vilifying any of my characters that are in my story while I'm telling my truth. I really had to go through the work to heal before again, I'm very intentional because I know my purpose. So it's never about, oh, let me just put this out there so I could be seen. Or let me just do this so people can see how talented I am. No, the devil, it's not about me. I am a vessel to be used, right? So it's like I did 4 years. I did the work, the real uncomfortable work of having to heal from my childhood traumas, of having to confront my childhood traumas, of having to confront those that have hurt me from my childhood, and then find that strength to forgive because I'm forgiven every day, to offer grace and like, it was a struggle. And I really want to give a shout out to my pastor, Dr. Hosea Collins. I love him so much. But it was him, like without him as well, a Rose Called Candace would have never been birthed, because he was the one that kept telling me, like, Candace, baby girl, you have such a powerful story. Because Candace, I'm someone that literally does not look like what I've been through, because I am so joyful. And so, you know, that people assume a lot about me. People assumed I was raised in the church. People assume I come from a 2-parent household. People assume I was raised in the suburb. I don't know why people assume all this stuff. But I think because of my personality, you know, you would never know. I have been through hell in my life. And so my pastor would literally tell me, he would say, baby girl, your story is not unique. And that's the reason why you need to share it, because it is so relatable to so many people that are going to look at you and be like, she went through, she overcame all of that. Yes, baby. Yes, baby boy. Yes, little mamas. I did. And so can you. You can too, because I did. I come from where I come from. And like Candace, I'm like on an interview with you, you know, like I like the interviews I've been like the things that have happened in my life. These are things I imagined that seem impossible. And for someone like me to like, I'm great. Do you know what because I understand that this does not happen for everyone. And I understand that there are a lot of people who did give up. And I understand even in my own struggle of like just being honest with this writer strike, like, you know, I'm grateful for Blindspot. We don't know if we're going to get a season 2. Like, we don't know. Like, people don't understand. They just see you on TV or they see you posting, but they don't understand what's happening behind scenes or behind the doors.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part that I share. I want to show you. I have a thing series called Candace Car Confessions that I do, where if God plays, like, it's not videos that are edited. It's not something that, let me retake it. I genuinely sit, and if God puts it on my heart, I'm like, I press play and I pour out my heart, you know, to you guys, honestly. And there was one Candace Car Confession where I had just booked Blindspotting, and I showed everyone binders after binders of just auditions, of stacks of all. Those were all no's, like huge stacks of binders. And how out of all those binders, all those no's, I still never gave up. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I still just, man, that takes a lot of strength to do that, especially in our industry, because when you hear a no, it's not just a no. It's like a thing that you internalize. Oh, I wasn't pretty enough. Oh, I'm too dark skinned. Oh, I don't have the right hair texture. Oh, I was too tall. Or was I not? Like, you question yourself when you get a no, because it's a huge rejection. And you're wondering, like, why, God, was I not chosen? You know?
When I was younger, my dad told me something once, which was, you know, when you hear a no, you have to hear it as a not yet.
It's a delay. Yes. Delay does not mean denial.
Yes. And when I was younger, I was able to hear that, but I lost that for a chapter of time in my adulthood where I've just like a no meant a no. And it's really been taking a lot of, you know, effort and kind of work that I've within myself to remember that and to hear my internal voice again. Going back to your pastor telling you, you know, how necessary it is to share your story, specifically because you are not alone in your story and that others will find so much comfort in it. How long were you homeless, and when were you able to finally, because I think it is insane to me the way that we as a society kind of view the idea of homelessness and kind of paint it in a certain picture. And it's ridiculous to me.
Yes.
And so for you, if you're comfortable sharing a little bit of your experience about kind of walking through homelessness to also then finding a place that was yours.
Yeah, I will. I love that you brought that point up, because I definitely experienced that when I was homeless, because I didn't look homeless, right? It didn't look like, oh, I was living outside of trash bags in the trunk of my car. It didn't look like it, because every day I had to make, again, everything's intentional, and you have to make the choice to be like, okay, God, I'm going to get myself dressed today. I'm going to put myself together. So when I would go to certain places to try to get resources or help, I will never forget, I had a woman look me straight in my face and literally tell me, as I was trying to get assistance, and she literally said, but you don't look homeless. So are you? And I just remember sitting there and feeling like, that's so interesting that we stereotype.
Yeah.
Because you don't know like, literally everything I own is in that car. That car at that time that had recently just had gotten towed a couple of weeks prior. And mind you, I was still working. I was working at Universal Studios as a tour guide, but because they go based off seniority in terms of shifts. So I wasn't getting shifts, right? It was the seniors who got the shifts first and stuff. So I wasn't really making money there. Then I was in a play at the time, but theater,
Yeah.
that's not a lot of money. You literally do theater because you love the art form, right? And so, and I had to, again, I was doing things also to keep my sanity while I was homeless. Going back to your thing, how do you stay in this being creative? Like I said, still putting yourself in those creative spaces, because art, again, it sounds cliche, but art saved my, like it saves you sometimes. Art is therapy, art is healing. It, like, art is just, that's why I love being an artist so much. But I will never forget walking out of the theater in North Hollywood and not seeing my car there. Everything I owned was in my car. And I just remember, just for that lady to sit there and tell me, you don't look, and like her, like it was so judgmental, and she didn't help me get the assistance or whatever. But yeah, it is interesting to me with that. And when I do see people who are homeless, I once had a friend, they're no longer my friend, but I once had someone that was in my life that if I wanted to give an art, I would. I'm a very empathetic person. Like, I feel so deeply, Candace. Like, if someone's sad or if they look sad, it's like I can feel them. Like, I feel so. And that's another reason why too, that sometimes my art is overwhelming to me, because I can feel pain. Like, I
The
feel it so,
audience too, I'm
yes,
sure.
like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I can feel, so deeply that it is overwhelming sometimes. And I remember that friend being like, oh, they're homeless. Like, if they want to get a job, they can, or no, Candace, don't give them, or don't help, And I'm like, but you don't know that person's story. You really don't know that.
Yeah.
You're just assuming because you see them here asking for a handout. You're just assuming things. You're assuming it's going to drugs, or you're assuming that they're going to use it, but you don't know. And even if that is the case, you don't know how God is using you to be a blessing. You don't know what God may want to do through you to help that person, or what it may be for that person. Why in that moment you are encountering that person. Like, yeah.
For you, what was something that finally gave you a moment to exhale deeper? When were you was it working? Did you start booking some acting jobs? Did you get more shifts? Like, were you able to finally find a place to call yours and your home?
So yeah, I was homeless for about a year. I lived in my
Wow.
car for about a year. And then I started working for Culver City School District. People don't know this, I'm actually a trained behavioral therapist. Like, I
Oh,
worked,
wow.
I did it for 4 years in the school district. I worked with the babies who, had autism, learning disabilities, behavioral issue. Like, I'm actually certified to work in that,
That is angel work, by the way. That
oh,
is.
thank you. Trust me, even when I did decide to quit and say, okay, God, I'm going to fulfill purpose full time, that was one of the hardest things I had to do. And I remember Miss Catherine from HR, she said, you're one of the good ones. Like, we're so sad to have you leave. We understand what you're doing, but you can always come back if you want to, because you do have to have a specific, it's not just a check. You have to really love, care for these
Yeah.
babies. But I remember I worked for the school district, and the district, thank goodness, like, I'm a big person on finding solutions. I'm not someone that likes to wallow and cry over a problem. Like, maybe I might cry, have my moment, and then I'm like, Candace, all right, get it together, because you can't stay there. You can't stay
No,
in a
I
negative
know.
space,
I
right?
call it mommy magic. Like, that's like, now that I have two kids, like, when I just want to like sit there and cry, I give myself
Yeah,
like 5 minutes. I look at my clock and then I'm like, all right, mommy magic time. What can I do to like make this all like move forward,
exactly.
move through it?
Exactly. Yeah. So you have to, yeah. So I would do that. And then, so I went through I was like, okay, what resources are at my disposal as a district employee? And then it was through the district. I ended
Wow.
up becoming with a program. The program helped like pay like half your rent, or like they paid the first upfront or something for you to get you started. And that's how I ended up, getting a studio apartment in LA. And then I'm very grateful to that program, because it really, that's where I got to breathe a
Yeah.
little bit, but of course, being a part of that program too, it can be really, it's hard and it's sad sometimes, because you're also treated a certain way too. because it's like, oh, you're the help, like you need, so you're also treated a certain way too. And then you're also, and I'm pretty sure other artists can attest to this, whether it is a regular daytime job or if it is something where you're getting resource or something like that, people look at you a certain way when you say that you're an artist. Because in their mind, they're like, well, you're homeless. You need to, what are you doing? Like, I don't care that you're an artist. You need to pay, get money to, so it's also straddling that, believing, keeping the faith of what God has ordained for your life, and blocking out all the naysayers and negativity. Or like how you said, even as children, like being able to hold on to a dream, even though everything and everyone around you is coming against it or doesn't understand. Like, you want to be an actor? Oh, okay. I've gotten that throughout my whole life. Oh, okay. Working at the hotel, I used to get that from the guests. They were like, I'm like, oh, I'm an actor. And they would literally say to me, oh, that's like a 1 in a million opportunity. And my response would always be the same. Oh, I'm going to be that 1 in a million. Is there anything else I can help you with? Like, always, because I believed it. It did not matter living in my car. It did not matter serving people and picking up dishes after people. It did not matter where I was in my life. I always held on to that. I knew, God, that you destined me for something great, Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about a scene that's been so impactful, even just researching you, that meant so much to so many people? But there's a specific scene in Good Trouble where you perform a piece that you wrote.
Yes.
Can you share?
Black girl.
Yes. Can you share with us how that came about?
Oh my gosh. Shout out to my Good Trouble family. I love them so much. No, because Good Trouble, they were my first TV credits. Shout out to Scott and Miss Deborah, the casting directors. They gave me my first opportunity, my first TV credit. And so I'm just so grateful to my Good Trouble family. Shout out to Miss Joanna Johnson. It was Miss Joanna, producer, writer, director of Good Trouble. She found out, like, I guess somehow she must have saw a poem or something that I did online or something like that. And it was for Malika, who is played by Zaria Dale. Hey, sis. Malika, it was for her, a specific episode for her character. And so all of us were like doing something for the character's celebration. And she was like, Candice, I would love for you if you could write a poem. Like, here's the topic, like, here's the subject. And she's like, could you write something about this? Oh, yes. And fun fact, Candace, I literally was working on it while I was still working for Culver City. Oh, well, I don't work there anymore. They're going to be like, he was working on the clock. But in between, like while the babies were at recess or on their lunch or something, I was over there working, like writing, revising the poem, sending it to Miss Joanna. What do you think of this? She's like, oh, that's good. Can you make it a little bit shorter? It can't exceed 3. Bet, got you. Let me go back in, like recording it, sending it to her. I'll sit in the car, record it, send it to her. Like, it was just, and the crazy thing is also too about faith, it's also obedience is very important in faith, in your faith walk. So if you believe that God has told you something or has placed a certain assignment over you, it's important to be obedient to that, because the reward or whatever blessing he has following that is, predicated on whether or not you are obedient. And I say that to say, I remember when I first discovered spoken word poetry, and I remember hearing God, I was so upset with you, Jesus. I was upset, Candace. He literally was like, yo, stop acting. Do nothing but your poetry. That's ministry now for a year. So for a whole year while I was in college, I was like not acting. I just did nothing but spoken word. Any events, youth explosion, conferences, churches, like open mics, like anywhere where God was opening doors, I was sharing my ministry. Like, I was just doing poetry. But I was so upset because I was like, God, I came out here to be an actor. I don't want to be no poet, right? And then I will never forget, God was like, I'm going to bless your acting career through your poetry. And Candace, 7 years, and we know 7 means completion.
Yes.
7 years to the day. This is how good my God is. 7 years to the date, Dear Black Girl.
Wow.
Dear Black Girl was released on national and I was like, wow, God. I remember I just kept crying so much that week that we shot that episode, because I was like, I remember God 7 years ago that you said this to me. And here I am performing my own piece that I wrote in a show. That was nothing like, so shout out to Miss Joanna, Bradley, Peter Page, all like the producers. I'm so grateful because that really also set me on the map, if you will,
Yeah.
as a poet. So much so, Candace, that I remember during season 1, like everyone was like, "Oh, you're gonna do a poem, you're gonna do a poem," and I was like, when did I become a poet first? Like, you guys, like, I've always, like, I don't think people, it's like people didn't know I was an actress. Like, everyone was like, "Oh, you're a poet, you're a poet." And they were, "Oh, you act too?" And I'm like, guys, like, my whole degree is in theater. Like, this is, like, I'm an actor. But it's interesting because Dear Black Girl really set me, like, really just opened doors for me as a poet. And I think that's how I was really introduced to the world, if you will. But that's how God said it, right? And then for me to be cast on a show that deals with heightened verse and poetry, like, and I'm so grateful to those who follow my journey and my supporters. They know I love them because, first of all, they don't have to follow me. People don't have to support you. And I'm grateful to them because the love that I received when the announcement first came out, when I had booked the show, because everyone was like, "Candace, this show, it's like the role was made for you. Like, it was perfect for you," because everyone knew that I was a poet and everyone knew that I came from theater. And this show, this beautiful show, being exactly that. It's like the stage literally on screen. So yeah, shout out to Raphael and David because they so dope and talented. Yeah.
What's also so beautiful is any opportunity to be working as an actor and performer is incredible,
Yes.
but there's something really beautiful about the fact that the role that, like, when you 7 years in, that what made, like, it was you. It wasn't like some role where you were fitting into someone else's, you know what I mean? You had to have you in order. And like, that is, I just think, really beautiful, especially right now. I think as a society, we are just so craving authenticity. To go back to what we touched on a little bit, just when you're talking about social media, about how a lot of people kind of almost play a caricature version of themselves. And, when you're able to lead with your authentic self in the world, how beautiful that is. But when not only you got the part, but you got the part because of you and what you brought to not just a role, but to the world.
Yeah.
And you created that inspiration just from you walking through your life. I mean, that's a very special thing. It really is.
So thank you, Good Trouble Pam.
I also want to talk about your show. And I know I'm sure it is a very, to what we were talking about at the beginning of this, like, a lot of people, if you're not in the industry, it's very confusing. You're like, what do you mean writer's strike? And, well, what do you mean a show might not come back on? And that is a big thing. I mean, even when you're on a show, you're never guaranteed that you're going to stay on it.
Right.
I never, even in all my years on Vampire Diaries, I never bought anything because I was just like, well, this might be the year that I get killed off. You never know. You never know.
Right.
I just and then 13 years later, I was on the last episode of the third spinoff, and I was just like, well, I never knew. So I just wanted to play it safe, guys. But,
right.
But you never know. Season 2 is out.
Yay!
Can you tell me a little bit about your experience booking the role, and also what it's been like as your first series regular role after all these years?
Booking it went the traditional route, like when your agent sends you the sides and everything. And I remember reading the sides and being like, God, this sounds like me, aside from all the cussing, because Janelle, my character, she be cussing a lot. I don't cuss as much as her. Yeah, aside from that, the way that it was written, so shout out also to them, the writers, it just was so natural. And, Oakland being the Bay and me being from Sacramento, which is like the distant cousin of Oakland, it was just very because up north we have a natural swag. It's a natural way that we speak, so there was nothing, I didn't feel like I had to put on anything for the audition. It was just me just being like, and I remember watching the movie Blindspotting and I was like, Jesus, I want to be a part of this series because the movie, like, that's the type of art I love. Like, art that has a message, art that means something, that is saying something, like, and I love the movie so much. It has such a powerful message. So when I did the first audition, I wrote on a piece of paper, I put Candace Nicholas-Lippman set to star as Blindspotting, set to star as Janelle in the Blindspotting spinoff. And I put it on my wall on that same little studio apartment that the center helped me get, right? I put it on the wall and I just kept speaking life over that thing, even when, because the audition process, I think it was like a few weeks that I had to do the audition process, like the callbacks, the chemistry, everything. It was like a process. And then there was a time within the process, there was a moment where it looked like, oh no, are they going with a different actor? You know how that is, where it's like, oh God, oh God, no, please, I'm so close. It looks like, and then, but I never took the piece of paper down. I kept, because I was like, I feel so connected to Janelle. Like, I feel like I am Janelle, God. But I was like, you know what, God, but I release it. The how is your business, the why is mine. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to just continue to just keep believing that this role is for me, God, even though it's not looking like it's about to happen right now. And look, it happened.
It is a very magical day when you get the yes. When you get that yes.
I have it framed now. I never threw that piece of paper away. I was like, God, look at that. That is faith right there. And I literally have it framed now as piece of like artwork on my wall. Cause I'm just, yeah.
When the really fun thing about playing a character over many, in their own little mini arcs over many episodes is that I feel like you learn from this character all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. You think you're there to kind of guide, and it's really fun where all of a sudden you're within the role and within a scene and like something clicks. I had this experience where something would click and it would like the character in the scene would be teaching me something that I needed to hear within my life. Is there a specific scene or a moment that Janelle has taught you something in these 2 seasons?
I would definitely say to me, Janelle is very brave. And the reason why I am inspired by her courage, I think it takes so much courage to leave all that you know and go live in another foreign country for 5 years. Like, she left all she knew in Oakland and went to live in Bali for 5 years. And to me, that's something really inspiring because I want to travel. That's something I really want. I want to see the world so badly. Even when I was a little girl, I just lived in I lived in the hood of Sacramento, and I was like, God, there has got to be more to life than just this, Jesus, please. So, I want to see the world. I want to see how other people worship God. I want to try other people's food. I want to immerse myself in other people's culture. I want to live life. And that is something to me that I find just so inspiring, and that Janelle has taught me to really just be more free. I feel like Janelle is very free. Like, for her to come back to Oakland, her hair is all locked, and everything. And she's like quoting like these kind of really spiritual quotes. And it's like, she's into deep meditation. She's into microdosing. She took the girls on like, Janelle is like not what you would typically, or what you would think that you wouldn't typically see in a Black woman from Oakland, and that's something that I love so much about her, that brown and Black girls are looking at a woman like Janelle who they can relate to, and then who also they could possibly be inspired by. That this woman, I think people are shocked who Mustafa was. People were not expecting that Janelle like her little Asian persuasion, okay? But I don't think people did you hear the name Mustafa? Like, people create, stereotypes. Like, we live in that type of world. And I love that Janelle breaks down a lot of those stereotypes, especially when it comes to like darker or brown skinned Black women. And I'm very grateful to play a role like that. And Janelle is inspiring to me. So I hope she inspires other people too.
Well, I think anyone listening to our interview today is definitely feeling inspired and cannot wait to watch. Everyone go watch Blindspotting.
Yes,
both seasons are out now.
On Starz.
Candace, I mean, you are one in a million. That
Oh.
is undeniable. And I'm just so excited to be cheering you on in your career and watching you just soar and soar and soar higher and higher in your journey. I love to do a little cool down at every interview, just kind of a
Ooh.
final 5 little questions. And just you can answer with the first thing that pops into your head. It can be a word or a sentence. But what is something that you like?
Tea.
Tea? What kind of tea?
English breakfast.
Really?
It's like my favorite. I drink, I probably drink too much tea, but I drink at least maybe 2 to 3 cups of English breakfast tea a day.
God, I want to be a tea drinker. Like I have so much tea. I do like the dumb thing where I'm like, I'm going to be a tea drinker. I need to get off the caffeine. And then I'll like collect a box and it'll be like 5 years expired. And I'm just staring at it being like, I can't throw it away because I have to be a tea drinker.
See, if I was at your house and you just had all that tea, I'd be like, listen, Candace,
perfect.
Can I have this? Are you going to drink?
Perfect. I'll keep it just in case. Okay. Something that you know.
Something that I know, my purpose.
Something that you hate.
People who don't take accountability, who just are victims. Like you just blame, take accountability, heal. Just do the work.
Yes.
Okay? Be a better human. You just got to do the work. We all got
Heal.
issues. We all got trauma. We all got, trust me, we all got it. So no judgment, but you got to do the work. Like it's not everybody's fault. It can't be everyone's fault. Take accountability. Please.
I love that. I needed to hear that today. Thank you. That's perfectly said. Thank you. I was going to say heal.
Yes,
heal.
Please. Gosh.
What is something that you love?
Jesus.
Yes.
I love so much. I love being alive. I'm grateful for breath in my body. I love people. I love the babies. I love a lot. Like I said, I got a lot of emotions. So I just, I love love.
I love love. Yes. Okay. And last but not least, Candace, what is a quirky little fact about you?
Oh, I can't believe I'm about to share this because
I'm so excited.
My friends be like, Candace, what the heck? So I have this weird thing that if you were to come to my house, I have like stacks of like toothbrushes,
really?
Like packs of because I can't use the same I change out my toothbrush. Like my toothbrushes don't even make it a week.
I respect that. I mean, it is
because I can't. I don't know why. Like in my mind, I'm just like, oh no, this one's dirty now.
I get it. I mean, it makes sense. I get it. I truly get it. I don't change my toothbrushes that often, but like I pretend that that's not it. Like I don't ask myself why I should. You know what I mean? Which I think you're just asking the appropriate question. Like, should we be putting this plastic stick of bristles that takes all of the gunk out of our teeth back into our mouth after we've thrown it into a suitcase and a toiletry bag?
Exactly. Or it's just sitting out. You know how you put in the little and then the air and the dust
particles.
I'm like, oh no. I need to switch it out. Or I can give you another one that, because my friends always make fun of me. In fact, I'm going to show you.
Oh my gosh.
They make fun of me, but now they do it too. Since college, I always have my own TC English breakfast. But everywhere I go, so my friends would be like, I'd be like, oh, I'm about to go get a cup of tea. They'd be like, Candace, you're about to get a cup of hot water. Because I go
to my gosh.
And I just get the hot water because
it's free, by the way.
I even buy their tea. See, I got Starbucks.
That's amazing.
I just buy, to me, it makes more sense. It's more cost efficient. If I buy a box of tea, that's like $3 to $5 as opposed to spending $3 to $5 every day.
Yeah.
Multiple times a day for a cup of tea.
Well, I'm surprised all the Brits of LA haven't found you and like just been like, because anytime I've been friends with anyone who's English in like anywhere and like they've been over at my house for like a dinner party or something like that, they're like, but where's the tea? And I'm like, I don't know. Do you want like a chamomile or a nighty-night time tea? Or like, and they're like, no, I want like real tea. And I was like, I don't know what that means. So
you're like, I got coffee. You want an espresso?
Yeah. So to all the Brits, all the English in LA, just go find Candace. She's got the good tea for you.
I got the tea all the time.
Candace, thank you so much. This was so lovely. It is so nice to meet you. I really hope our paths cross at some point in real life in the world. Oh my God, from your mouth to God's ears. I will be waiting to let's manifest. I love that.
God. We're ready.
Yes, I know. I'm like Anytime, even over the weekend, someone was like, so what are you working on now? I'm like, I'm here and I'm alive and I'm breathing today. That is what I'm working on right now because we're in a writer's strike and I'm not
Or
going to
I
think
hate
about
when
it.
people, and I understand, I know they mean well, but when people are like, oh, this is a season of rest. I'm like, listen,
No.
I have waited my whole life. I don't want to, I know I'm weird, but I genuinely love to work. I want
Yeah.
to work. I want to be overwhelmed because I'm so busy.
Yep.
I love that, So I'm just like, God, no, I'm.
I feel ya. I feel ya. A Super Bloom podcast is hosted by me, Candice King, produced by Melissa D. Montz and Diamond Imprint Productions, edited by Diane Kang, post-production sound by Coco Lawrence, and advertising partnership with Acast.